Sitting of December 20th, 1904. During the morning hours of the date given above, while my sitting was going on, another of Mrs. Piper's sitters underwent a surgical operation of some sort. I had not been told that an operation was to take place, nor do I know today who this person was. Rector explained to me that Imperator was obliged to be absent from the sitting, that he had left Prudence in charge, while he, Imperator, was over and around the cot of a member of the circle. Near the close of the sitting, which lasted 2 hours, I was asked to take a message to Dr. Hodgson to the effect that the operation had gone on well. I noted the exact time when this was told me, and sent the message to Dr. Hodgson by telegram at the earliest possible moment. I afterwards learned that the operation had gone on well, and that the person operated upon was much gratified on being told, at an early hour, what came from the other side of the veil in regard to himself. Communicated first to me, by me to Dr. Hodgson, and by the latter to the person concerned. Rector. During the course of Rector's remarks I say, "Rector, wait a moment. Through whom is my friend going to talk now?"
He will try and speak direct to thee, if this be possible. If not, I shall remain, as it were, a non-entity, giving his messages.
You have allowed him to do that?
Yes, I have, through the advice and command of our leader.
Some omissions. Now, Rector, my friend is really and truly here, almost exactly the same as if he were in his own body, is he not?
Almost the same, and if thy spiritual eyes could open, thou would see him standing here beside the ethereal cord, waiting his turn to enter into the light upon the cord.
The General.
Are you here?
Yes.
I am here to meet you. Oh, how happy I am.
Who is it? Don't be offended, will you? Rattles off some lines of poetry, evidently some of the same words which came on the occasion of his first return, December 23rd, 1903. I afterwards found the verse which he was quoting, which is by Charles Mackay, and runs as follows. Tell me, ye winged winds, that round my pathway roar, do ye not know some spot where mortals weep no more? Some lone and pleasant dell, some valley in the west, where free from toil and pain, the weary soul may rest. This bursting out into some language which was rhythmical, especially when he was happy, was most characteristic of him in life.
Yes. The answer comes to me in the spirit. I have found it. I have found the rest, the life, the peace, hope, everything I hope to find. Now you know who it is?
Oh, I know anyway, only I thought I would just ask you that.
Well, if you should say General, I should be pleased to hear it.
When I first knew you, I could not get used to calling you General. But after I did get accustomed to it, I could not call you anything else, because that seemed to be the right name for you.
You thought it applicable?
Yes.
Well, that is pleasant. Remember that the laws of vibration are very wonderful, very, very great, and my thought reaches you and vice versa. Therefore, for what more could I ask?
Something about his family doing well.
My friends are loyal and I am happy, and the mere fact of my returning and speaking with you is an inspiration beyond description.
Well, it helps me more than anything else I do.
These good saints have helped me to understand the laws of communication, and I am not so much of an idiot that I should laugh at it, or pooh-pooh at it further.
Well, you would better not.
How can I? The reality, it is a stern reality, and such a reality that it is the only thing which God hath given us to enable us to understand the laws of the eternal life. Is not that beautiful?
Yes.
Is it not beautiful? And it is the only way. So the casting off of the mere body, the shell, is nothing. It is nothing. It goes to waste. But my spirit lives to speak.
General.
Without the wires, I could not communicate so easily, but with the wires my thoughts are registered clearly, are they not?
Yes, General.
Yes?
You are taking Rector's place today, aren't you?
For the first time I am, yes. Dear creature, he is here to help me. He stands beside me, watching me to see that no harm comes to the instrument over which I speak.
Well, it is not so very hard, is it?
No, not hard, but if you were to question me one question after another, it might confuse me, but you ask your questions so clearly, so slowly, and in moderation that I can understand them and reply. But if you were to fire questions at me, so to speak, volley after volley, it would confuse me, so I should be obliged to go out. You understand?
Yes.
You look so well. I see your spirit so clearly. I see what I did not use to see. I saw the physical and not so much the spirit. I see the spirit and the physical both combined. They both seem clear to me and beautiful. I am glad you followed out my instructions. I saw you in the place which I designated.
Do you know where that is now? What do you mean?
I saw you in a place with a lady, a very beautiful character, a very interesting character.
Do you know who that is or when it was?
It is what we used to call summer, and it was in a green place, and everything so beautiful, so peaceful.
I spent several weeks during the preceding summer at a place called Greenacre, in the town of Elliott, state of Maine. It is sometimes called Greenacre on the Piscataqua. Summer conferences have been held there for a number of years past. A large assembly tent is erected on the greensward indicated by the name, and representatives of all religions are welcomed to the open platform.
I saw you attending something, seemed like lectures. I saw you conversing with an occasional gentleman, and I saw you sitting. It looked like a tent.
Yes.
And saw you walking about.
Yes.
I saw you. Was it in a hammock? Something swinging.
Yes. Once or twice.
And I saw you sitting there thinking, as it were, alone, and it seemed as though the shadows of night had fallen, and it was in the evening.
Oh, yes. I think it was at this point that I recalled a special evening. See, explanation later.
And I came and stood beside you and put my hand on your shoulder, and I heard you say, how peaceful, how perfectly delightful it is. Do you remember it?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing the moon? The heavens seemed dark, and then the moon appeared. It was early in the evening. And then I saw you get up. Somebody came and spoke to you, and you got up, walked about a little, and went inside a building.
I was in this hammock, I think twice, but one night a long time, and I even fell asleep there.
Yes, that was the time when I put my hand on your shoulder and had the beautiful messages of peace from your spirit.
Well, I went to sleep, oh, very easily and beautifully, and I woke up and thought how beautiful it was to sleep there under the stars.
Yes, stars. That is what I mean.
And I even got locked out of the house.
Yes, I know there was some difficulty in your getting in. I know that. And then I remember the surprise which came over you when you recovered.
Yes, I was surprised.
And I was with you all through that little sleep, talking with your spirit. Do you remember what a peaceful wave came through you?
Yes.
It was I who sent it, who brought it.
When I sleep like that, it seems as if I was off somewhere. I am perfectly unconscious of this world. And where am I then?
The spirit, your spirit, goes out upon an ethereal chord, just the same as the spirit of the light here departs. Now I see the spirit of a woman going out, and it is the same in sleep, and I talk with your spirit just the same as I am talking with you now. Sometimes I almost feel that you will remember it, but when the spirit becomes active and fully possessed of the body and mind, then it forgets.
Yes. Do you mean that is so always in sleep or only in those occasional sleeps?
Under certain conditions only. The sleep might be disturbed if the spirit communicated with it always, but upon certain occasions and under certain conditions, we are able to talk with the spirit very, very clearly. The spirit understands and answers.
You mean the earthly spirit?
Yes. just the same as you answer me when I speak with you now. Why, to know that I can follow you, to know that I can see you in certain places and under certain conditions. And do you remember the tent?
Yes, yes.
Well, I saw you under the tent and sat beside you several times, and there was another lady with you. Who was that lady? She was a beautiful spirit, a bright, beautiful-looking woman, a very clear mind and beautiful spirit. Is her name Sarah?
Wait a moment. You know I am taking this all down, don't you, General?
I do not see what you are actually doing. I see your thoughts are busy, very busy.
I want to preserve every word, and it is so delightful to think that I can write down in shorthand just what you say, just exactly as I used to do when you were here.
Oh yes, I remember. That is what you are doing. Well, I do not actually see the writing going on, or the motion of your hand, or the paper, is it? But I see you, your general outline, and I see you, as it were, in the light. You look as though there was a light all about you.
Well, now let's be slow.
That is the reflection of the spirit about you.
My spirit?
Yes, your own spirit. There is a reflection, as it were, all about you. It is very clear and very beautiful to me.
Do you mean Sarah Farmer?
I should not wonder. That sounds something like the name I heard her called by. She was not actually with you, but I saw you with her, and saw you talking with her, and she has a very large spirit, a very broad spirit, and a very large and beautiful mind. Was that not so?
Miss Farmer is the person who started that place, and who has charge of it and has gotten all the fine speakers there, etc., and she is considered a very advanced spirit. Do you think it was she?
Yes, it was she whom I saw.
You know, she was not a special friend of mine, though I know her.
But I saw another lady with you.
Well, General, wait a minute. How did you know her name was Sarah?
I heard several ladies in a large room one. You would call it evening. Again, calling. One spoke to her very intimately and called her Sarah, and I was within. I was perhaps, let me see, where is your hand?
The psychic takes my hand and holds it about a foot from my face.
I was within that distance, the distance that your hand is from your face, from her, when the name was called, and we can hear, and we can see, and understand names as they are spoken in the body, if we are attracted to anyone individually.
I see.
And oftentimes the names, if we are interested, register themselves upon our memories, and we never forget them. But to go back to this evening, then you got in, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. But that was the time when I saw you very clearly.
Yes. All the incidents referred to in the preceding conversation about Greenacre are almost literally true, though I am aware that some of them are simply things which one would naturally do during a summer outing. The sleep in the hammock, however, was an unusual one, and I have rarely, if ever, had one just like it. The fact is that I dislike the motion of a swinging hammock and seldom lie in one. The evening in question was one of those still, balmy evenings, when it seems a sin to sleep under other canopy than the starry blue. I do not remember the moon, think there was none, or not until very late. I found an empty hammock a few rods from the inn and appropriated it. I remember thinking how delightful it was to lie there facing the stars, entirely free from contact with the earth, a part of the atmosphere around me. I believe I even felt that I had been in error all my life thus far in not overcoming my dislike to the motion of a hammock. I fell easily into a sleep, which must have been a deep one, and woke surprised to find from the general appearance of the inn that it was late. I spoke with a gentleman who was passing, and as I remember I addressed him first. We went on the veranda, where there was one other person, and found that the inn was closed for the night, and we were locked out. Fortunately, a parlor window was easily opened and then the door unlocked from the inside. I do not remember that I did, and think I did not. dream anything in the sleep which I could afterwards recall. I seldom heard Miss Farmer called Sarah, though that is her name. I was not specially with her, but probably spoke with her once or twice during my stay. I remember going to Greenacre one summer several years before the General passed away, returning and telling him about the place. That he ever heard Miss Farmer's Christian name spoken is very doubtful. He knew very little about her when living. Now, General, why can't I learn to go out that way and sleep? At will almost.
Well, it sometimes is not wise. Sometimes it is not healthful, and it rests with the divine power as to when those conditions are suitable. Perhaps you can better understand that. I have learned a great deal about the conditions since I have been here, and it has been my one thought to study into the conditions and understand them for your sake, that I might be able to help you. I now see what a clear, beautiful mind you had, and why you were so interested in things which seemed to me rather absurd.
Well, I am glad to hear you say that. All things come to him who waits.
Yes, that is very true. But in the material life, in the mortal life, it seemed that I was unable with my peculiar makeup to grasp anything which I could not see.
Yes.
Therefore, perhaps you will excuse me for not accepting your theories, but I lived to learn and understand for myself. It was a happy day when I came. The awakening was something beyond description. I never can tell you how I felt when I woke, and as my spirit passed up from that imprisoning body, through the cool ether, and the ethereal veil parted and my spirit passed through it into this beautiful world. The sensation and the light, delight, of it all is beyond my power to explain. And could I explain it in earthly words, your mind could not really grasp it or understand it.
Yes, General, you say that you could not accept things unless you could see them, but I thought you had a very fine and highly developed spirit. Otherwise, you would not have gone so quickly into the right conditions there, and understood how to come back here, and be taken in by Imperator and Rector, etc., would you?
You realized, I think, that my desire was for the advancement of mind, and you remember how I used to love poetry, and that I had a vein of sentiment, as you used to express it. Well, all that is fine spiritual perception. And it is really beautiful to me now when I realize that I possessed that at all, when in the physical body, and it has been a great benefactor to me in this life. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
It has been a great help to me, the mere fact of my growing in spirit and the body, and I really loved the beautiful.
General, don't you remember how a beautiful woman used to impress you? Wait a moment, a friend of yours said once, old Mr. Clapp, that he did not know any man who took in the soul of a beautiful woman any more quickly than you did. We laughed over it, but I knew it was so.
You understood it?
Yes.
Well, that is very beautiful, very kind in him to have said it. But I really think that I do, and know now that I did. I know that I understood women, and the beautiful side as few men did in my environment or among my associates. And all those things appealed to me, and it was that was highest and best. All that appealed to me most. And I was very happy in my earthly life in a way. I loved life for what life gave, and I loved the pleasures. And I loved the physical and all that the physical gave, but still I was large enough in heart, I feel, and in spirit not to allow the physical temptations to drown my soul.
Yes. This is a very good characterization of himself. I am of course very greatly blessed and privileged to have your continued friendship, and to be allowed to come here and talk with you.
Well, there are so many restrictions. This great spirit, this man here who leads, he is the noblest spirit I know, and there are so many restrictions. He understands the conditions so well, and he has his everlasting eye open, watching constantly, that no harm shall befall anything or anybody connected or associated with the light or the spiritual influences who work through it. Why, it is really marvelous.
You mean Imperator?
Yes. He is not present at the moment because he is away on a mission, but all those whom he does call, remember, really are privileged.
See note at opening of this sitting. Yes, indeed they are. Now I want to ask you to watch, and if you think you are not going to have any more opportunities to come to me through this light, then I want you to get one final chance if possible and tell me that you cannot come more. Will you try to do so?
Will you repeat that once more for me? You mean that I must return here and tell you before?
Think I replied yes.
Oh, yes. Well, I am going to tell you something. We call them the saints. They told me before I came here, before I asked them if I might speak with you. They told me that the leader, the head spirit, he said that the conditions were low, but he said, I will not go into explanation, but abide by what I say. The conditions are such that I must exert all my influence and power to hold the conditions in a sufficient state of clearness to enable you to return to your friends on the earthly side at all. Do you hear?
Yes.
And he also said, by doing this, you will be enabled to return through the light, occasionally for an unrestricted time.
Well, that is beautiful.
And only under those conditions will you be permitted to return at all through the present light. Therefore he has taken up the light and is specially administering unto it to keep it for those who really need light and help. Do you understand?
Yes.
Well, if you do not, perhaps Rector could make it clearer to you.
I do.
This was a private conversation between Imperator and myself, and he notified all the communicators who returned through this light of the conditions, and were it not for him and his wonderful power, I perhaps should not be able to return. But so grateful are we to him, that we offer up our blessings daily and almost hourly to him for his guidance and help. I wish you could see him.
A few brief sentences only omitted here.
I know one thing. I know that they all on our side can see and have predicted the absence of the light on the other side of the water.
It must be remembered that it was after the date of this sitting that Dr. Hodgson passed out. Mrs. Piper spent the winter of 1906 to 1907 abroad. In speaking of a prediction made concerning myself, he says,
Perhaps you had better ask Rector about that, as he is very clear and understands that very well. Or, better still, George Pelham. Perhaps you know him? He has been a great help to me. A great help to me, although he is not so near the earth and the conditions surrounding the light as I am at the present time. He really is a great help.
Is he in another sphere, so-called?
Yes, he is in the last sphere, what you would speak of as heaven, the last, seventh sphere.
What sphere are you in?
I am in the third now. We have to pass through the third sphere in order to return, one might say, and therefore I could not return immediately directly I passed out of my body.
Oh, that is the reason, is it?
Yes. It is just like going from one room to another.
Illustrated by change of location in the material world.
We advance until we feel that we have perfected ourselves according to God's will and idea, and then we are satisfied with ourselves, and not until we have.
Well, when you first passed out, did you go into the first sphere, or do you call this the first sphere where I am?
Entering the material life is one sphere of life. That is the first, because life comes with the creation of the mortal body. Life comes. It is the breath of God. And you are a branch of his great tree, you understand. And then the spirit grows, advances. Sometimes it does not advance in the mortal because it is hampered by physical ill, etc. If not, it is removed after a time and enters our life, and then begins to develop and grow.
Well, then, do you think everyone leaves here just when it is right for him to go, whether he is young or old?
Yes, that is all in the hands of God, and although we never see God, I have never seen him and never hope to. He rules us all and reigns over us all, and we are a part, a branch of him, and your question will make that clear to me.
When anyone dies, as we call it, whether he is 30 or 80 years old, it is the right time for him, do you think? Or is death merely an accident? The time of death?
Oh, it is not an accident. It is ordained by God. I could not understand when I was in the body why certain things happened, why certain deaths took place, and so on. But God knows what their lives are and what they are to be, should they live. Therefore He removes them, perhaps through disaster, perhaps through accident, perhaps through fire, perhaps through loss of a vessel, and all that sort of thing. And He removes many at a time. But every spirit that enters this life, there is a home prepared for it and a place prepared for it. Perhaps you know that in the earthly Bible, the material Bible, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That has a literal meaning. The spirit really never suffers, never knows a moment's pain or anguish of any kind. I know this from the pure experience and study.
But, General, you are not always, you over there, perfectly developed, and does not your happiness depend on your inner development there as it does here, your degree of happiness?
Well, yes, to an extent. But we never suffer as suffering is expressed and understood by you.
Yes, I see. I see. How about age there? How old are you compared with Imperator? What is the standard of measurement?
Well, Imperator is... In fact, no spirit is ever old. There is no such thing as age with us. We enter this life, according to our acts in the mortal life. If we have advanced and grown, we have gained so much when entering this life. But if we are hampered by physical ills or physical infirmities, or perhaps some may inherit imbecility or something of that kind, when the spirit leaves the body, it enters this life and grows, in a sense, as a child. It rests, it is released. The moment it is released from its body, it assumes a condition of happiness, as it were. There is a peacefulness about it that permeates the whole spirit, and a certain power of understanding, and then it advances and grows until we might put the age, for your understanding, to 50, and we are never older than that in spirit.
You mean never older than about what we think of as 50?
Yes. The body grows old simply, but the spirit never grows old. The spirit remains young and beautiful always. No matter whether the man has passed from the earthly life through senile decay or through accident in youth, that makes no difference. The spirit is young always. But the conditions of the spirit and its happiness do depend somewhat upon his advancement and growth and understanding and desires of right and wrong in the physical life.
Well, supposing I have a friend now who goes over there, who did not think much of spiritual development here, could he be where he could see and talk with you, for instance, or would he be in a lower plane?
Well, he would be, for your understanding. He would be in a somewhat lower plane upon entering this life. But if he has a great desire to reach me, there are certain conditions through which he must pass in order for that desire to be accomplished. And if he lives according to the restriction and the laws which are mapped out for him here, then he might be able to see me in what you might term a few days. Then his desire would be fulfilled, and he would be made happier in consequence.
Now, General?
Yes, I hear every word you say, and you have the faculty of speaking slowly and distinctly.
Yes, when you went away before your body was put in the earth, I was called by the light known as Mrs. S. I went there after your body was put away, but she told me, that is her control, her spirit guide told me, that the day you died, you passed out in the morning of our day here. And she said that you might have been around that day, but she was so busy she did not notice you. But at night you were there, and you had on such an anxious face that she had to listen to you, and you kept saying, "Send for Anne, send for Anne." Then, when I went a few days later and talked with her, she talked as if you were really there. Well, she said, of course you did not put it in words, but she expressed the feeling. Now, do you know anything at all about that, or were you around, or could you have been around, or could you have called me in that way? This is a light to whom you went once with me when in the physical body. The psychic known as Mrs. S. sent for me as explained above, asking if I would like a sitting, feeling that she ought to comply with the request of her control. Though she had never before offered me a sitting simply because her control desired it, and never has since. Although she had seen in the papers an announcement of the death of my friend, she assured me that up to that time she did not know that I had been associated with him in business, having the impression that my special work was to assist Dr. Hodgson. On the occasion when the general accompanied me to a sitting with her, several years before his death, she was not told who he was, and was not acquainted with him.
Well, I remember after leaving my body, the first thing I thought of after leaving the body, after passing through this ether which I described and beyond the veil, that is, on our side of the veil, into this world, the first thing I thought of was, where is Anne? I will go and find her. I turned immediately, and looked back into the physical world, into the material world, looked at the physical body, saw it like so much earth, and I saw you terribly distressed, as it seemed to me. And your spirit seemed very downcast and depressed, and I tried to reach you and was very anxious to do so and very anxious to make myself understood by you. And if she saw me, she was probably true in saying it, because that was the first thing I remember of doing. And the first thought that crossed my mind was, I will go and find Anne wherever she may be, and tell her that I am still living and going on into the eternal life. Therefore, I cannot contradict or disclaim her veracity.
It was not his habit to call me Anne when living, though it is the habit of returning spirits to call their friends by their Christian names. Now will you come to me as well as you can whenever I go to see her? And do you think it would be well for me to go there occasionally?
Yes, once in a while, but I have learned from Imperator, who knows all there is to know, and prepares his messengers to give such light as he deems that they are fitted to give. He says, too frequent communication on our side is not wise, and it is wiser for the spirit to store up its knowledge and learn all the conditions of its life, and then return occasionally, imparting that knowledge to his friend on the earthly side occasionally, but not too frequently, as the spirit loses by too frequent communication.
I see.
And it is not well for his best development.
I tell him something about his old home. I am going out there the evening preceding the 4th Sabbath from now, if I can. I am going to listen to the sound of your voice through the phonograph.
A speech?
Yes. Do you remember the phonograph?
Yes, I do.
There were some of your talks preserved. There was the remarks of Colonel Ingersoll at the burial of his brother. There was George Eliot's choir invisible. There was Bryant's flood of years. Now I am going to listen to that for the first time since you went away, and I want you to stand right beside me all the time, and then when I come here again you can tell me about it.
I shall be delighted. That will give me greater happiness than anything you could ask me.
Unfortunately, the phonograph was out of order when I made my visit. Can you stay a while longer?
Yes, I am listening.
There is a little talk here about a sister in the body.
You have a sister here in this world whom I have met.
What is her name, do you know?
No, Hiram knows. At the moment I could not tell you, but he knows. And perhaps Rector will tell you what her name is. I remember I was introduced to her some time ago, and she is a beautiful spirit.
This refers to an older sister named Laura, who died in 1881, 13 years before I became acquainted with my communicator.
Then I have met your father. He was a peculiar man, wasn't he?
Brief talk about my own family.
I like your father. He is a very strong individuality, and he made his mistakes like other men in the earthly world, but he is a true spirit, and he loves you all dearly.
My father was peculiar, a strong individuality, and made mistakes. He passed out 4 years before I knew my communicator. Was your mother your guiding spirit all through your life here?
Yes, and a dear one she was.
Did you recognize her as soon as you saw her?
She helped me. She showed me the way. She stood at my chair, the chair I used to sit in. She stood beside me when I passed out.
Does she know me?
Yes. You may rest assured that if I have had anything to do about it, she does know you.
Some omissions. In speaking of my private work, I say, you must not get discouraged if I get discouraged, will you?
Not at all. That is not like me, is it? Didn't I have courage to the last? Ask me all you wish. My thoughts keep clear, as you ask your questions so clearly and beautifully that they are not confusing to me. If you were to say, "Now, General," I want you to find a name for me. Get it now if you can. In searching for that name, or switching my thoughts from the track on which they are flowing at the present time, over which they are flowing, it would confuse me so that I should lose the whole thread of my individuality and thought. The moment I entered this life, I was told by Imperator, "You have just opened your life, and your life is in the beginning. You have much to do with a friend whom you have, in a sense, left behind." Then it dawned upon me what he meant. I said, "I know what you mean. You refer to the actual truth of a vague idea. It is going to be a reality. An idea which crossed my mind before my illness. It passed through my mind, the thought before my illness, as I loved poetry, reading books, like yourself. Everything, it crossed my mind many times, and the desire that I might be qualified to write. When I entered this life, Imperator pointed those things out to me. He made it clear to me that it was possible for me to return and help you, and that we might do this thing together. Now, of course, I cannot say how long the light will remain in the body, or what the conditions are surrounding the light. But I do know this, that conjointly and together on earth, they have prayed and are praying and giving peace and restriction to the light for a few who are privileged to use it and receive messages through it. Therefore, I am one who is privileged, for which I am most grateful.
Of course, I do not want this wholly for my selfish pleasure. I want it to be of some use to the world, my coming here to see you.
It should be. And if others would think likewise, there would not be such a vague mystery about it all. As I used to think when I was in the body, there was a vague sort of unknowable mystery.
The time is passing. I must not keep you too long.
I must not remain too long, but Rector stands here ready to take me away, to assist me out, that no harm may befall the instrument through which I work.
Some omissions.
Tell me about little Augustus.
Augustus? Which one?
I mean, the little fellow, the one they called, it is not really his name.
Oh, he is all right. Very pretty. Some omissions.
But they call me now, and I must go. I must not abuse my privileges. God bless you and be with you.
Goodbye.
You know I am Martin?
Oh yes. Close.